Everybody, so in today's video we're going to be talking through the mitosis of a cell, and we're going to be trying to look at real cells, images of real cells here. All right, and so in this first image we're looking at a cell that is in interphase. Remember, interphase is where the cell spends 90% of its time. Okay, so it's growing and various other things happening here, but right now you can see the nucleus, right? So you have the kind of lighter circle there that represents the nucleus. You cannot see the chromosomes inside because the DNA is still these really long, thin strands. So you cannot see individual DNA at this point. It is a fully formed nucleus. The nuclear membrane is holding everything inside there. And then, of course, inside you can actually see the nucleolus that's inside. And so the nucleolus, remember, is where it creates the ribosomes, and so that's that darker section right there. So it looks like a general normal cell. All right? Now, the next phase is prophase, right? We got PMAT, and so we're looking at the prophase. Now, in the prophase, we learned about how the nuclear membrane is there, but by the end of the prophase, the membrane is gone. And so if you look at this one over here on the left, you can see here in the middle the chromosomes that are starting to form, right? That's what it talks about over here, is that, you know, if you look at some of these other nuclei, it's just kind of a blob. But if you look at this one very clearly, you can see that the chromosomes are starting to form into these strands, right, inside the nucleus. In this one right here, you can actually see that the edges of the cell, the nuclear membrane, are actually starting to disintegrate. You can't actually see the edge here. It was very dark, very clear that you had a nucleus. Here, you're starting to lose that, right? Maybe it's getting a little bit bigger. It's starting to stretch out a little bit, but definitely it doesn't have that kind of darker spot in the middle. You can notice in some of these, like this one up here, there's your nucleoli, right? So inside of your nucleus. And so this is prophase, where you can start to see those strands forming. All right? Then we move into metaphase, and in metaphase, it's very, very clear that those chromosomes are starting to line up here in the middle, right? You can see that in this one as well. So you got two cells here that are very clearly in metaphase, where they're starting to line up in the center. You can see here that there's no longer a circle. There's no nuclear membrane here, but it's quite clear that with no nuclear membrane, they are now in a straight line in the center, in the middle, ready. We often call it the equator of the cell, but they are now prepared for the next step. So the next step, of course, is anaphase, and in anaphase, they're starting to move away. And so in this image, we can actually see anaphase, a couple of pieces of anaphase, right? We can see this. You can see that they're just starting to separate, right? You can't clearly see the spindle fibers, but you have spindle fibers that attach to the center, the centromeres of each of those chromosomes to help pull them apart. Same thing on this side. These guys, you can see they're bent kind of in this direction because the center is being pulled this way, right? Now on this one, you can tell that they've been completely separated to opposite sides of the cell. And so this is what we would call late anaphase, where that separation being pulled away has almost completely happened. Now that is the sister chromosomes have moved towards opposite poles. Sometimes we simplify by just saying sides, but the proper term for that is saying that they have been moved to opposite poles. Right? Now, hopefully you're looking at some of these other cells. You can see that you've got some normal nuclei there with a nucleolus. So we can see some of those things as well. This one, right? You can see this one where it looks like it's starting to form some of those strands. So that's probably a prophase there, right? So you can, hopefully you're starting to get the idea of what these cells look like in these different phases. Okay? After anaphase comes telophase. And in telophase, we start to actually get that division happening. You can see that the sister chromosomes are completely at opposite sides. You can see right here in the middle, there's a very faint line, but that faint line is where the cell is starting to create the new cell wall in between these two, what will soon be new nuclei. So that final phase of telophase is sometimes you can see these, sometimes these are starting to unravel. Here you can still fairly clearly see those. The only reason why we might say this is telophase instead of anaphase is, number one, it's clear that they're separately, completely on opposite poles, and secondly, that cell plate in the middle has started to form, which means that the anaphase must be over, and they're just sitting there waiting for the formation of the new nucleus, and then the formation of that new cell wall that will split it into two different cells. All right, so hopefully that process was helpful to being able to see how these different phases actually look when we're looking at a cell. When we're in class next time, we are going to be looking at some real cells, and hopefully we'll be able to determine what phase each of them are in. All right, so that's it for this video. I hope that was helpful.